This CD includes an opening title graphic with the title Adventures in the Second Dimension. The scene file and all the objects are included, so you can load this. It's called Title, and you'll probably learn a lot more just from taking this apart and examining all the different elements. So let's tear it apart right here. What we have here is we have our objects flying in, and we appear to have an oversized background plate. Now that background plate is really just something to catch the shadows. Now, I spent quite a bit of time tweaking the lights and the shadows to get things just right, and my illumination light, my shadow light, and I believe the first light is also controlling incident angle on some of the surfaces. Let's take a look at the surface. Yep, we can see. By the way, if you like these surfaces, or if you want to use these to start with, you can copy them onto your own objects and use that as a place to start. Now, it's important that you understand how these work so that you can go in, because they are scale dependent. Your objects may not be the same size. Some of them might be using like the light incident. Let's see if this one is. Yep. No, just the incident angle. But if it uses the light, you'll want to make sure your lights are set up properly. Now, to copy surfaces over, you open up your preset button and you double click on it, and it will pop into your preset, and it will still be there when you shut down and you start up again. That surface will be there, and you can copy it over by double clicking on that surface, and whatever surface is selected in your surface editor, it will then copy over. So here we have our object. Let's take a look at what these objects actually look like. These are subdivision surface objects. And they are being displaced and deformed with the displacement map, which is a fractal noise that's being jittered around with the noisy channel. Once again, I've gone in here and spent much time setting the amount of jitter, the level, the texture level, to get just the look that I want. And also setting the edges to get just the look, and also the camera. I've got dithered enhanced medium with motion blur of 170%. Now the reason I did that was to get this look. If we look at this, see this? Does that look like that was made by a computer? No, that's a big smudgy mess with some shadowing, and you don't really know what it is until it falls into place. And here's our final look, and I think this is one of the most successful looks that I've had in getting something that looks like it was drawn with a pencil, hand shaded, and when you see this animated, you've got the slight giggle going back and forth. It really gives it a lot of life. Now there's a couple of other things that I've done in here. Go back to our camera view. One of the things that I did was, sure, I can make a still look like it's hand drawn, but there is also cartoon motion. And if we look at where it says second here, when it drops in, the best thing to do would be to load up this scene and take a look at it. We've got some bouncing, some squashing and stretching, a very cartoony type of action. We also have this dimension coming in, and it's making this kind of snake-like motion while it comes in. Now the reason I can get that snake-like motion, it's not full of bones, it's not morphing, there is this plugin called Inertia. And Inertia is kind of like the old lazy points. And what that does, basically, it makes the object kind of elastic. It's like it's made out of a very viscous kind of rubber. It can be controlled with some settings. That is under the object properties for the object. It's called dimension. Right here, inertia. Double click on there. I bring this up. There isn't the option to envelope it. And the reason that is because I wanted it to snap into place at the end. If we click on my leg rate here setting, we can see it starts off with this value, a value of 0.25, and now that's per second. So it's going to lag about a quarter second down to 0 lag when it gets to the end. And if you load up this scene and render out a preview, even a wireframe preview, you'll see how it comes in very, very thickly. Like it's very viscous, very kind of sloggy, and then when it gets to here, all of a sudden everything kind of snaps into place. The other thing to notice here is I'm not using a displacement map up here. I'm using the exact same thing, but it's underneath the inertia leg. The reason for that is the displacement map kind of overwrites everything. If it's down here, I can put my displacement in order, and these things will work together. I could have a whole list of displacement going on, and they'll all be additive, and I'll get a big, messy bunch of points that nobody knows what's going on and will frighten small children. But here we're just using 2, and once again, this is pretty much the same settings as I had before with some of the other objects. But it's put after inertia. I can temporarily take that off, take a look, back it up, and see how that is very stiff now. It's not having that lag, which is what the inertia does. Very handy to get very loose liquid kind of motions. You can fake, like soft body sometimes if you're very careful. The other thing that I've done with these objects, they are subdivision surface objects. I have my display level. It's always tricky when you want to make text a subdivision surface because subdivision surfaces, of course, are built on either 3 or 4 point polygons. And whenever you're dealing with text, you always have the problem. There's circles, there's curves, there's holes, and that doesn't lend itself very well to 4 and 3 point polygons. So it's gotten a little sloppy in here. If you take a look, we can see these triangles. What I had done was I had sliced it up. I believe I used the Julian tool, or maybe I just went in with a knife and cut it up. Actually just added extra geometry up and down after I created the objects. At least that's what I did down here. But if we look at the text that's above it, this one I did not take the time to go in and slice it up into nice 4-sided squares before tripling it. I just went ahead and tripled it. This font, I wanted to have a fairly alliterative font, and it actually worked just as well, I think, as on the bottom. I can see certain areas. I would have gone in and I would have added some more geometry to the side here. However, when it gets displaced, it actually makes it uneven, a very uneven displacement, which is not such a terrible thing. The other thing to keep in mind, these are subdivision surface objects. They've been tabbed, as some people call them. The display is 0, but the render level is 3. well, this one is 3 and 3. Down here, this is 0 and 3. So if we actually set that level, that's actually the amount of geometry that we have to work with. Go up here, let's see what it really looks like, which would be, for some reason it's looking exactly the same. I bet you that one is not a subdivision surface object at all. It was fooling me. But this is an example, a fairly decent example of how I'm using the 2D techniques to get what I feel is a very successful example. If you've seen any of Bill Plimpton's work, it looks very much like this. The addition of the drop shadow in there really helps sell it. I've got some white highlights on here, tweaking the line weight exactly. You can see the fully rendered version from the disk, or you can load up this scene and take it apart once again and look how I have things set up. And you'll probably learn just as much from pulling apart the scene as it stands as you will from listening to this.